Okay.
Wow, I love how I drove 3 hours to teach 2 people from my park.
I'm sorry.
It's great.
Hey, you get this, kid. All right. Hi, everybody. The very large crowd that we have today. Thanks for being here. I'm guessing we'll get more people. Get in this. I'm Warlord Magni, and this is Warlord Gemini. Say hi. And
Warlord Gemini Creed.
Gemini Creed. This is the next installment in my Newb to Warlord series, and today we're going to talk about the climb, specifically the climb to Warlord. Right. So we're going to cover a variety of different aspects. This is mostly conceptual, discussion based. If there's any questions, kind of at the end, we're happy to talk about it. But first off, right, what is the climb, and really what does it mean? So the climb in general is from starting out from 0 to really Warlord, right? Like that's the goal.
Yeah.
But additionally, I like to think about climbing even past Warlord. It's not like Warlord is on the way; it's on the path, but there's always a higher mountain to climb, or like to go above. But really specifically, when people colloquially are talking about an Amtgard, the climb, it's really striving for Warlord, and like that last final push, right? So what are like the general stages? So in like the scope of fighters, you have like low, mid, and high tier. I would say low tier fighters are really the fighters that, kind of like day one, they're still figuring out how to throw shots, how to use their footwork. And I would say what qualifies as a mid tier fighter is somebody that like really has the fundamentals down.
Mm-hmm.
And then a high tier fighter is somebody that has fundamentals and they're using it in a variety of diverse and complex ways. They're able to like have the mental game and plan out like a strategy when you come into a fight. I think those are some like really defining factors when talking about a high tier fighter. Would you agree?
I think a high tier fighter is somebody who.
Really quick. Hey, Sean, that's recording, right?
No.
Are you serious?
No, it is. It is.
Okay.
Sorry,
all right. Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks.
So, my opinion of a high tier fighter is somebody who has the fundamentals down and they build upon the fundamentals and make it their own.
Okay. Yeah. I think that like the diverse ways. Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of like pitfalls and things that people fall into under each one of those categories. Yep. And I think the biggest one for a higher tier fighter isn't physical or like footwork related or anything like that. I think like for me specifically, like it's emotional and mental game. Yep. And the things that you get while you're frustrated, because you have to make all these different decisions and choices, and then you could have made 1,000 right decisions and made one wrong decision and lost the entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think that kind of like goes to the scale of skill.
Yeah.
Right. Talking a little bit about the scale of skill, one thing I think people should realize when we talk about, being a low, mid, and high tier fighter is this isn't like a linear progression.
No.
From, day one to Warlord, right? This is actually exponential, right? The next level up is exceptionally higher than the step before. And you can see that in like understanding of the fundamentals, in being able to come into almost any situation as a high tier fighter and plan a series of steps of like, all right, this is exactly what I'm going to do. All right, I'm fighting Gemini. I see like this opening. He responds to these fakes. He doesn't respond to this, so on and so forth. That isn't something that is easily learned, right?
That, in my opinion, that's just something that's gained with experience. Like,
right.
Like my man at arms on my page are having a hard time with that because they're like, what do I do in this situation, or what do I do in that situation? I'm like, I can go over these with you, but you're not gonna know what to do. You're just gonna have to kind of figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
And like eventually you'll build what we used to call like the Rolodex in your head. And like I fight Magni, and I'm like, who does this guy fight like? Oh, he kind of fights like Colt, or you know, my buddy Kelsey out here. Like, you guys are very similar, very fast, very, you know, like crazy off time shots that are quick. And it's like, how did I beat that guy? Will that strategy work?
Yeah.
So you basically pull out another fighter that, you know, that fighter resembles and try those strategies.
You have like high tier fight. I mean, I think going off of this is like high tier fighters just have a wealth of experience that they can pull from. Whereas like my man at arms, he's still gathering data and collecting, you know, oh, this person fights like nobody else I fought before.
Yeah.
You know, fighting a rogue is very different than fighting a torch, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And if you've never fought that, that's a very new problem that you kind of have to figure out how to solve on the spot.
Hit the torch in the leg.
Yes. Yes, they're going to be very upset. Okay, so those are kind of the breakdowns and different differentiators, and realizing, you know, it isn't a linear progression. It's, I think, remembering for everybody that it's an exponential growth.
Peaks and valleys.
Yeah, peaks and valleys, right. It's something to remember on the climb. Okay. I also wanted to briefly talk about like timelines and trajectories with, you know, people going on their climb. So I guess first off, right, like from what I've seen from day one to Warlord across Amtgard, it's about like 12 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's 12 to 15 years unless you're like a freak.
Yeah.
Or you're from like the
if you come in with like
the older generations of warlords.
Yeah. But I think generally across the board, it takes 12 to 15 years. So somebody that like comes into the game is like, oh, I want to do this like in 5, like
it's possible.
It's possible. It's hard though.
Yeah, it's probable. You need to travel a lot.
Yeah.
Like I saw in your notes where it's like you don't have to train 3 to 5 days a week, but if you're trying to make it in that 5-year mark, you're going to need to train 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
You're going to need to travel. You're going to need to get as much experience and hands-on work in as you can.
Yeah, you like.
And being physically fit doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, being physically fit, I think goes a really long way.
Especially in the Warlord style tournaments.
Yep. Yeah, when you have to go from like the Iron Man pits, you know, which each of them lasts 15 minutes, and you have 4 to 5 categories, and then you go to brackets, and each of those is probably going to take 20 minutes to an hour. You know, so you're fighting for each bracket or each category like an hour to hour and a half.
Well, one of my last fights, well, it wasn't my last, but I fought Talon and Sword and Board down on Winter's Edge, and it was a best of 5, and we got 2-2. And our last fight, like we kept Simo, and it was like a 30-minute ordeal.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just a lot.
Was it Florentine?
No, it was Sword and Board.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was rough.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like everybody has their own time frame. I think so. For me, it took me 10 years, minus 4 years for college, and then minus 1 year for COVID.
I started playing in like 2004, and I just recently got it in 2024. But like I came off of a 4-year ban.
Yeah.
So subtract 4 from that, and then I was in the military for about 7 years. So subtract from that. But so what is that math? You're the engineer.
I wasn't paying attention to the numbers.
4, 8, 9, 10, 11. So take 11 off that. So about 9.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes 11 off of the 20. So
yeah, that's fine. Right. I mean, I guess realize like not everybody's story is the same, and there's a lot of variability, and also realizing like life gets in the way, and you should focus on life before you try to get Warlord, because Warlord doesn't mean anything. I mean, it means a lot colloquially within the game, right? But it's not something you're really going to put on your resume. So just kind of keep that in mind.
I'm sure we can figure out how to word it.
Maybe.
Disciplined.
Yeah. Disciplined regimen, you know. I think also, right, like you kind of brought it up to how fast you want to push, right? If you're doing casual fighting and learning as you go along, and that's your kind of style for gaining this information, it's going to take you the 12 to 15 or more years. But if you're pushing and you're doing 3-4 fighter practices a week, every week, and you're traveling around the country, and you have like great mentors and coaches, you can conceivably do it in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Leaf got it in what, like a year and a half?
I think so, but he's like the Michael Jordan of Amtgard.
Right. I mean, like top tier.
I think Spin did it in like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I think Rorik did it in 4 years.
Yeah.
I might have, I think.
I mean, that's all like exceptionally fast.
Yeah.
So, what else? Okay. How long? Okay, so for me in Amtgard, when I was doing like my push and everything, I was pretty casual for the most part for the better half. It wasn't until like 2021, like post COVID, I got like serious, and then within like 1 to 3 years, or within 1 year, I got all my kingdom wins.
Yeah.
So I was like stagnant at 5 for 6 years, and then I jumped to 8, 9, and then got my 10th in Warlord.
Yeah, seven's rough when you get to 7. I stagnated at 7 pretty hard.
Yeah.
And then I got my first kingdom win, I think in 2016 or 2017. But at the time, the standard was you needed 4 wins. And so your first kingdom win was a 7th. And I was 1 away from streaking to an 8. So I didn't get either. Yep. And then I was just so burnt out. And then like I had to
check out the burnout video.
Yeah, and then I had that 4 years off. And then it was like I came back. My first tournament back, I took 3rd, and then I won the next 4.
Yeah.
I won 3 in Rising Winds, and I won 1 down in Winter's Edge.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I got that RW curse. Like I've taken 2nd, 2 seconds, and a 3rd since then.
Oh man.
But I've also been doing school, so I haven't been training super hard for stick fighting or anything like that. But
I mean, I guess like with both of us in that case, right? Like you hit a stagnant level, and then all of a sudden, like everything kind of like clicks.
I think the best advice I have for that stagnant is like that's probably where you're burning out and you're pushing too hard, and maybe take like 3 months off.
Yeah,
it's probably like the best thing that you could probably do.
Yeah, taking breaks is really important. And it may seem counterintuitive. Yeah, but
well, I mean, it's like lifting in the gym. Like you need a week off every once in a while, or like you ever watch Dragon Ball Super?
Yes.
Well, it's like that quote. You know, it's like that quote where Vegeta's he's meditating and Goku's like, what are you doing? We need to train. And he was like, this is Jiren. He meditates. And then Whis is like, you're fighters, not bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So it was just, I think having that 4 years off just to think about fighting and then coming back really helped me.
Conceptually understanding and, where you are and amongst everybody else and like with yourself and, also like how bad do you want it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just realized like overall with trajectories, it takes a variety of different times. Like our timelines are very different. We also come from like 2 very different points in Amtgard, or like generations almost.
Yeah.
But again, like it also depends on how hard you want to push. How much and Raven talks about this of like the more you put in, the more you get out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the more you put in, the more you get out. And he even said it when he awarded me my Warlord, is that only so many people out of 100 people become a Warlord.
Yeah.
And it's like those people say they want to be a Warlord, but they'll never put in the work to be a Warlord.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. If you want it bad enough, you'll get it. You'll get it. You want it bad enough, you'll travel. You want it bad enough, you'll train.
Yeah.
Once
you get the bug.
Yeah, like when I made my push, I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning, and I would pel for half an hour with my left hand, my right hand, and then, I would go do my workout, do my cardio, and then go to work for the day. So, and that's what I was doing, while other people were out partying and doing other stuff, and then coming to tournaments wrecked.
Yeah.
So, just depends. Like
depending on how disciplined you are and all that.
And don't get me wrong, like you can be like there are always outliers. You could be physically out of shape, or you can be, you know, not in top tier shape and still win. Like I mean,
it depends on like.
were you around for Brett when
Yeah.
Like first time I met Brett was SKBC in Missouri, and he was kicking the dog shit out of everybody with single sword and water bottle.
Yeah.
I was just like, this dude's a freak.
Yeah.
Like he's probably the closest dude, in my opinion, because I haven't gotten to see Nip fight or you know fight him, but in my opinion, Brett is the closest thing to Leaf that we've had since Leroy.
Yeah.
So, but I hear Nip getting compared to Brett and Leroy all the time.
I mean, Nip is an exceptional fighter, but I mean, check out his videos. He's all over YouTube. Okay, so I want to transition a little bit and talk about misconceptions. So you already pointed to one, you know, having to fight and train like you have to fight 3 to 4 times a week or more to get to Warlord. It's not necessary. It helps, but it's not necessary. I personally trained, I mean, I did my climb while I was doing my PhD, and I was working like over 60 hours a week, so I just didn't have the time. So I was only training, like, I only had a sword in my hand one day out of the week, and that was, but it was like 8 hours. Like, I was at park the whole time, and I was sparring the whole time. But also, when I was at work or driving or at home, like in the shower, I was thinking about fighting. I was like, oh, what are the ways that I can throw this combo? Or how can I open up like the shield side hip? Or how can I, right? Like posing these different sort of questions and thinking my way through, all right, what is the way that I do that? And then like just walking down the hallway at work. I'm pretty sure people thought I was fucking nuts.
Oh, dude.
But I'm just like,
yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I'd be in the truck, you know, like driving, which is not safe. Don't do it. But like, you know, I'm like thinking about the shot. I'm like, okay, I catch here, throw here, catch up here, throw here.
yeah.
Like I remember in June, I think it was June, July, August, September, October, November. May have been July, August. But when I first came back and Sevic just kicked the dog crap out of me, right? I thought about that for 3 whole months, and I'm like, how do I, like, what was he doing? What could I do better? How do I get around this? And then the next time around, you know, I did what I needed to do. I changed my strategy and I adapted, and I got there. So that was one of the things. I wasn't doing a lot of fighting, and like, you know, my people out of my park would tell you like they're aggravated. I need to come out to park more, but it was a lot more of like physically training, getting my head ready for everything, because that's my biggest downfall is like if I start counting points, that's when I spiral, and now I'm worried about points instead of worrying about what I need to do.
What's happening directly in front of you. I think another common pitfall that people run into is that you can only get better fighting better fighters.
I know that for a fact that that's not the case, and like a good indicator for that was Anatole. Like Anatole went from one area to another area, and that's when he started like training Xi'an and a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
And then that's when he like took off.
Yeah.
And he got crazy good.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of have like a very similar story as well. Of I was at a big barony, small duchy for the majority of the time I was in, or the entire time I was in my PhD, and we didn't have any warlords. Like I've never had a warlord at any of my parks. The highest like warrior fighter was a 7.
Yeah.
But you know, he got a 7 in like the mid 2000s, early 2000s, and he had already kind of like went off the climb.
Yeah.
But you can still like get better. And I mean, what I would do is I would come in each day at park, right? When I'm not at park, I'm thinking through what do I need to work on.
Yeah.
All right. I go into park that day and I'm like, all right, I need to do money shots, this specific money shot, or I want to figure out how to do money shots in like these 3 different fakes or feints or setups or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what I would practice every day, or like during that day, that whole day.
I think what really helped me was like I started, you know, teaching and re-explaining all the things that I'm trying to do and what I'm showing, you know, my underbelts on fighting. And I think that really broke down the mechanics and helped me understand what I'm actually doing and the process, because I've always been like a block strike guy, like just like very robotic, very like do the thing and try to do it pretty. And I had an epiphany. I was watching Shion and Peter the Quick fight at the Hog Cup, and it was on video. And they were just throwing all this like crazy stuff, and they're just trying to hit with the tip of their sticks. I was like, this looks not fun and sloppy. And that's when I had this epiphany. I was like, I don't care how I hit them. I just want to hit them now.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started double legging the shit out of everybody in sword and board fights.
Oh, dude. Like peak strategy.
And then the next round, you can fake the leg, and they're like, shit. And then you're like, shoulder.
Yeah, shoulder all day.
And now I'm in your head the rest of the day.
Am I going to go for the leg, or am I going to...
But yeah, like, it's crazy how you can develop and based off your learning style on what works and what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
And like, I tell everybody, it's like, you're not built like me. I'm not built like you. Like, but it's a toolbox, right? You have some tools. I'm like, oh, I like what Magni's doing. I might try that. And then I pull some of your toys out, and like, I figure out what works. If it works, it goes in my toolkit. If it doesn't work, I just toss it. I toss it out.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, that's actually a perfect segue into my next point of, right, it's not always about being faster, stronger, or being able to copy X Warlord or that Warlord, or, you know, me or Gemini or whomever.
Yeah.
Right? It's about, like, building your own toolbox. I mean, all Warlords, like, they come in different shapes, sizes, skill sets. We all have different toolboxes, right?
And we all have different physical capabilities.
Yeah.
Like
some people can, you know, bend in half, and other people are pretty stagnant and rigid.
Yeah, like that like Zeb throws this crazy uppercut, like slot shot on Sword and Shield, and I can't physically do it or figure it out.
Yeah.
Like Gun throws the same thing. And you know, but everybody's got their thing.
Yeah.
And then some people try to mimic. Like I have a shot that I throw, and I have friends that try to throw it, and they don't understand that it's a timing. So they try to throw it as fast as they can to hit everything. And like, it's a dump into a leg, and you wait for them to throw the cross, and then you come up and hit the underside of the arm. But you have to bait so they cross.
Yep.
If they don't cross, you can't get it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, I think you said it in a very eloquent kind of way of, you know, you can try somebody else's tools.
Especially like now, like everybody posts their stuff on Facebook, or not Facebook, but like YouTube, and you have all these videos. Like,
there's so many more resources.
Dude, when I was a kid, we had Advanced Sword and Board with Delos and Arthon, and I remember, you know, all I wanted to do was spin. That's all I wanted to do was throw spin shots, you know?
Look pretty, bro.
Yeah. The cooler it is, you know?
Okay. But yeah, I mean, like, even in my videos, right, like, anybody that's watching this, don't take everything, like, directly and literally to the point. Like, again, figure out what fits you, your style, and, you know, adapt and take it. And then maybe in a half a year, wherever, like, come back to the videos, check them out, and maybe you'll now be able to use something else.
And that's also for your styles too, because like I have a very aggressive like Florentine and single stick. I'm like very much in your face, like trying to throw aggressively.
Yeah.
But my sword and board is not like that at all. My sword and board is very like passive, and I'm waiting for my time.
Yeah, you're very responsive with your sword and board.
Yeah, it's like I'm waiting, and I'm gonna catch you, because I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I just do it. If I see two legs, I'm taking the two legs. That's all I got.
Nummies, chicken thighs.
Yeah, but it also goes for your styles. Like, you know, you may not be an aggressive sword and boarder. Maybe you have to be a little more defensive and set traps. Whereas, like, you can be a little more aggressive in Florentine because you have the two swords.
Yeah.
Or maybe, you know, you have that defensive single style where you're catching and throwing and you know, reposting. Yeah,
you're catching the blocks.
Yeah. So, like, your style doesn't just have to be this one thing. And I think a lot of fighters fall into that.
Yeah. Being able to pull different pieces and make your style yours.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, I want to talk about pitfalls. So I think one of the most common pitfalls that I see for people that are, you know, going for Warlord is overtraining. they overtrain like too much, and this often leads to like injury. And then the second pitfall is when you're injured, they're like, I still got to train. Like if I sit down now, I'm not going to be able to get to Warlord. Like it's lost time that I'll never recover.
I fell under this category. Because I used to train with Tato all the time. And I remember when it happened.
Is that why you're swole?
Actually, if it wasn't for Mike, I would not be in the shape that I'm in. Like he got me into weightlifting and conditioning, and like being able to eat better. So like,
it was a joke, but
no. Like,
okay. Anyway, sorry.
No. It's cool. Like I can contribute a lot of that to Mike. We were fighting at the gym. It was in the middle of wintertime. We had like a racquetball court, and they would let us come in, and they'd let me bring in as many people as I want. So we'd bring in like 6-7 dudes fight on the racquetball court. Mike throws a cross at me, and instead of being good and catching it with my hand and then throwing, I threw my board up under my armpit like this, and I threw a cross, and I tore my labrum, and it felt like 2 rubber bands catching, and then my arm went numb, and then it tingled, and then I fought like that.
That's not supposed to do that.
No, and I fought like that for like 6 months because it never really bothered me, but like I never could throw right. Like I had no power or speed over top. And that's how I developed that low game, because I could throw hard and fast low, I could not throw great high. And then that's when I went in for an MRI, and they're like, yeah, you tore out your labrum, you need a surgery. So that put me out for about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's just not worth it. If you think you're hurt, take care of it.
I think a great story as well, and this is somebody that I know personally, is Stug from Crystal Groves. Him and I were on our climb together, like pushing towards Warlord at the same time. And he'd been playing for like a year and a half, and never picked up a stick before. And then within like 6 months to a year, he was as good as I was, and I had been fighting for 5.5 or something. And it was like crazy. And then he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Well, first off, he tore his ACL, but he didn't know he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
And so he was fighting on a torn ACL for about 6 months, and then figured out he had a torn ACL, and he would still fight.
I mean, I'm like that too. I'm dumb. Like I went down to Tennessee in June or July of this year, and I thought it was just allergies. I was having a hard time breathing. I come home from Tennessee, and they're like, "You got pneumonia, dude."
Oh no!
And I was like, oh, well, I placed like 3rd out of like 40 people with pneumonia. Like, I'm not going to complain, I guess. But like, if something's not right, you should probably get it checked out.
Yeah,
don't be a dummy.
Yeah. Like when your body is telling you, hey, this hurts or this is bad, your body's not dumb for the most part. You should listen to your body.
Especially the more athletic and the more in tune that you become with yourself. Like you feel the little twinges and aches more than the regular person. So if you're feeling that, like you need to like take a break.
Yeah.
So,
I think another pitfall that happens is like the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah, that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
That was me. That was me at a point in time. Right. Yeah.
Where like, and for those that don't know the reference or what it means is, right, like you are the best at your park, and either by a little bit or a lot. And so I know for like a lot of newer players that haven't gone to kingdom level or seen Amtgard or Larp at a broader scale, they're just like, oh dude, I'm hot shit. And then the day they go,
and they meet a warlord.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh shit, dude, I just got put in my place.
Dude, I remember. So I went to GE, it was GE10. It was when Darva got his sword belt. I had never met Brennan in person. And so me and my buddy Chad are on one side of the ditch. And it was like Brennan, Draknar, Arthon, like, everybody.
Gods.
And I looked at my buddy Chad, and I was like, hey, you got this Newb? Because it was a dude in pajama pants with like a fucking wife beater on. And like, it was just, he looked, no offense, but he looked like a bum. And it was a dude with a Madu. I didn't think anything of it.
Oh, no.
And Chad just looks at me. He's like, I guess. So Chad ties up with Brennan. And like I kill, Joe, and then I start backstabbing the entire line. The next thing I know, I feel the sharpest pain in my kidney that I've ever felt in my life. And I drop to my knees and I'm like, what the fuck was that? And they're like, Brennan? I'm like, who the fuck is Brennan? And they're like, that sword knight? I looked over and he's like, hi, I'm the bum. I'm like, shit.
The funny thing is that there's so many Brennan stories like this of like, they underestimate him because he just dressed like, yeah, like in pajama pants and just not an Amtgard like LARPer, just very unassuming.
It was something stupid too. It was like Green Lantern or like the Flash pajama pants. It wasn't even like Amtgard
oh, dude,
related.
Green Lantern, no.
So
yeah,
but yeah, like big fish in little pond thing. That's a big thing.
Yeah,
and you see it a lot too.
There's always somebody better, and like even for me, right? Like or you, I'm pretty sure as well. Of like, there's somebody that can kick my ass, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be shoved in the dirt. I mean, with a grain of salt.
Well, that's something that I posted about on the RW list. It was like, because our warlords haven't really been really active lately, and it's like, dude, and maybe I have this old school mentality of like, there should be a warlord there, and not just for validity, but just because like you're the bar, like you are the standard. They need to surpass that standard. And it's like a warlord will lose more in his lifetime than he will ever win. And it's our job to either show up and win or to lose.
Yep.
Like that's just how it is, right? And some people don't agree with that and they think that it's gatekeeping, but it's the only title in Amtgard that, like, I'm not gatekeeping you.
You have to win by tournaments.
Yeah, it's not like I'm talking crap about you behind your back and saying that dude's not good enough for this award or whatever. Like, you shouldn't give him this because there was no competition there. It's like I'm literally showing up and keeping you down with the strength of my arm and my brain.
Yeah. But I mean, also, I think one of the things though that isn't done enough, and something I'm like trying to do in Amtgard during the tournaments, is, like when somebody that gets me in a tournament. And I've been seeing them like climb.
Yeah.
Like I try to be like, oh, dude, good job, like great fight, like that was awesome.
Yeah.
And that was something that like I didn't have in my climb or like in my tournaments. Like I've had people just be like, "Fuck you, dude," and just walk away. Well, oh, great, cool.
That was something else I used to complain when people would kill me with something that like I probably shouldn't have died to, and I would bitch about it. And it's like, well, it's valid. Like Mike used to say, it's valid. You're dying to it.
Yeah.
Figure out how to not.
Yeah, it's your problem that like
he would be like, that's a you problem, Greg, not a them problem.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So, that's a pitfall on warlords.
Well,
also like other people as well. Of, like,
another pitfall that I think people fall into, and I tell a lot of people this, is like you have people who fall into my ADHD's kicking in. They fall into like practice makes perfect, and it's like, no, perfect practice makes perfect, right? So you have to know what you're doing, what you're training, and if you're doing it correctly.
Yep.
The other pitfall is fighters fall into this whole like, I'm trying to develop my style kind of thing, and it's like, okay, well, you can do that, but you should learn the fundamentals and be solid in the fundamentals before you go and try to find your style.
Yeah.
Because you might get really good at that, but once someone figures that out, you have nothing else to fall back on.
I think that's a good point as well of like, if you really don't know how to like problem solve, or if you work so hard at building, this super awesome tool, hammer, whatever.
Yeah.
And the moment that doesn't work, like your entire game fails.
Well, it's like I have a hammer, but now I have to try to like pull something open.
Yeah.
How are you going to pull it open with a hammer? Right?
Just hit it harder.
Yeah. This is a push door. Or is this a pull door? Let's hit it with a hammer.
Yeah, let's hit it with a hammer and figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that also kind of leads into this of like people are too narrow focused. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but a little bit. I was coming at it with a different perspective when I put it down, where people that are working on a certain item, they do it too intensely, or it's like too narrow focused, and it's something that's not important.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, you could be fighting somebody and like, oh, I'm throwing this combo and everything like exactly the way that so and so told me, but it's like, oh, your footwork is like you're just not in range, or your range control is bad, or like your timing isn't right. I mean, like what you were saying with
or like
your load up combo.
I have issues sometimes. Like there was fights that we had back in June where like I thought for sure I was going to hit you, but as I'm throwing the shot, I'm stepping out and preparing for defense because I know you're going to throw, and because I stepped back as I'm throwing, I lose 3 to 6 inches of range, and I barely missed you.
Yeah,
you know, that's also things that people don't think of, or they make it a bad habit to throw and scoot back, and it's like if you were just throw and step instead of back, you'd be fine.
Yeah. So I mean, to overcome that, like take a step back and think about, you know, what you're doing and do it smart.
Yeah.
Right. Perfect training makes perfect.
Oh, and that's another thing is like whatever it's, and you know, it's a little cliche, but like when you sweat more in training, you bleed less in battle. But it's especially important in the Ironman style tournaments because the more fatigued you get, the more your brain shuts off and the more you fall back into old patterns and bad habits. Yeah. And like I do it too. Like I get tired and I'll start leaning and slouching a little bit, you know, and you know, my shots aren't as crisp. They're not as clean. They're not coming as fast. So that's why like being physically fit helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Last point I have on pitfalls is a lot of people often feel like they're not improving or not growing. You know, they feel stagnant. When in reality, that's not the truth. So I think this happens. My man at arms and I, we actually kind of had a discussion about this a few weeks ago right, we did some first to tens. They're on YouTube. You can check them out. I beat the shit out of them. It's Sean. I give him a lot of shit, if you can't tell. He needs it. Anyway, you know, we did first to tens back in like June, July, something like that, and then we just did first to tens again, and I beat him with one extra kill or one less death, and he was like, he kind of was like, ah, shit, I'm not doing, you know, I did something wrong, but in reality, there was a lot that he grew on.
Yeah.
And I had to like point it out of like, I'm not a constant reference. I'm changing like my skill to your level. So I always like have that constant pressure on you to grow.
Yeah.
So like that's, you know, you started here and I was fighting here. You are now here, and so I also increased in level. Right? So a lot of like warlords aren't all just gonna like beat the shit out of you.
I mean, some of them do.
Don't get me wrong. We all know them.
And I will say this is another thing that's going to mess you up because, you know, I tell my belts this all the time. It's like they start to learn how to fight, and then like the newbie foo starts killing them.
Oh, fuck.
And I'm like, look, you're playing a different game. You've learned to play the game that we're all playing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
they're figuring it out.
They're playing checkers, and you're playing chess.
Yeah.
Like you can't compare the two. And like newbie foo kills warlords too.
Yeah.
Like how can I kill you if you don't know what you're doing? How am I going to know what you're doing?
I lost a 21 streak to a noob.
Yeah.
On my 21st, it would have been my 21st kill, and I lost it to a noob, and I was like, "Good job, dude."
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the back of the line and take a break.
Yeah, I'm gonna try now. But yeah, like that's another thing people get hung up on. It's like they're like, I feel like I'm getting better, but now I'm losing to these people that I was killing, and it's like, well, now you're playing a different game, and they haven't been programmed or conditioned for the things.
To think the way that everybody else.
Yeah.
I think also like since you mentioned you have multiple belt or underbelts, is that like underbelts, especially people that are climbing at the same time, or you know, maybe not even underbelts themselves, but like you and your friends or whatever, you're all growing at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
and then you're also growing it in different areas. So like, you know, he might be getting really good at sword and shield, and you may be getting really good at Florentine. Just because he's beating you up in his best style does not mean that you're not doing good.
Yeah. Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so like, I fought Spicy at Armageddon here, and like he just spanked me super duper hard with
was
on
hot.
sword and shield, sword and shield on sword and shield. He beat me into the dirt, and then he grabbed another stick and it went. The ass kicking went the other direction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like I know that I can hold my own, but like I don't get to fight that really aggressive torch style kind of like domed board in your face fighting a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, but if I ever fought him in tournament, I'd leg him straight up, no heartbeat. I would leg him.
Fight me now.
But there was another point about Pitfalls. I was thinking about it, but it left me. I don't know what it was.
Damn shame.
Yeah.
Disappoint. No.
I am a disappointment.
Yeah. So that's all I have for prepared material. Do you have, besides this, any like tips, tricks, personal anecdotes that you want to share about your climb? I mean, you've already kind of touched on them.
Don't let it ruin the fun. I let mine ruin the fun. Like me and Raven, me and Raven drove all the way out to New Mexico, and like I don't remember much of the drive. I barely remember the event. I remember the fighting, and I remember coming home. There are times where it was just I was so obsessed on it that I don't really remember much of anything or where I went. I just remember the fights, and that will burn you out, and you will not have fun.
Yeah, I have a similar story in right. Like I was my first up until I got Warlord, right? Like or I qualled.
Mm-hmm.
I was so focused on getting better that I missed what Amtgard is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is Amtgard where we're all here. We're, like, all having a great time together. We're learning. We're, like, having fun, battle gaming, whatever. But for me, Amtgard for my first 9 years was just like, all right, dude, let's grind. You want to fight?
Yeah.
Hey, let's go spar. Ditch? Like,
Oh.
I would only take a break to like drink water, eat food, go to bed.
Yeah.
That was like
I remember fighting so much that I stopped camping because I'd be so sore. Like I started getting hotel rooms. But I remember what I was going to say now. When I lost it. Damn.
All right.
Damn it. Damn it. Where did it go?
Dude, the ADHD is bad with this one.
My Adderall's wearing off, I think. I had it and then I lost it. We were talking about
really briefly. With the end of my point, like, don't forget the fun. Enjoy the rest of Amtgard. Like, enjoy the rest of the LARP. It will make your time more enjoyable. You'll get burnt out less, and right, like, this game is meant to be fun, and don't like kill yourself over it. Did it come back?
No, it didn't come back.
We'll put it in the comments if it ever comes back.
Yeah, I'll do that. it was important for a minute, I guess.
I'll put it in the comments. You'll like remember it tomorrow. I don't know, but all right, that's all I have. Any last words?
No, not really.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time and attention, and no, I'm fine. We're about to end. Thank you all for your time and attention, and I guess we'll see you on our next installment. Well, my next installment in my Newb to Warlord series. And thank you, Warlord Gemini, for being my co-host and chatting through this very interesting topic with us.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, man.
I didn't hear everything you said, but you forgot to say hit that subscribe.